Ethel and George had been married for 42 years. They didn't hold hands. They held grudges. One night, as they lay in bed, George let out a snore so loud it rattled the blinds. Ethel didn't even flinch. Calmly, she reached over, grabbed her slipper, and gently placed it over his face. Not to smother him, just to remind him, I could. The snoring stopped. 3 glorious seconds of silence. Then it came back, louder than before. Ethel sighed, rolled over, and muttered under her breath, "If I'd known in sickness and in health included a damn tractor engine every night, I'd have married the milkman." Without even opening his eyes, George replied, "The milkman snored too. That's why your sister divorced him." They both lay there in silence. Neither held hands, but they both held on. Earl, 75, is a grumpy old man with one ironclad rule. He controls the TV, been that way for 52 years, until last night. Martha, his wife, strolls in and says, "I want to watch my show." Earl grunts. Football's on. Martha just smiles, walks over, and pulls a second remote out of her purse. "You mean, was on?" Earl narrows his eyes and clicks his remote. The game's back. Martha pulls out a third remote. He nearly chokes. "How many of those do you have?" She sips her tea, leans in and says, "Enough to control your TV, your blood pressure, and your afterlife." Earl didn't change the channel after that. A blonde had just been in a terrible car accident. Somehow, she climbed out of the wreck without a single scratch and was calmly applying fresh lipstick when the state trooper pulled up. The officer stared at the crumpled mess of metal and said, "Ma'am, your car looks like it got flattened by an elephant. Are you sure you're all right?" The blonde smiled and replied, "Oh, I'm perfectly fine, officer." Still puzzled, the trooper asked, "So, what exactly happened here?" The blonde explained, "Well, officer, it was the weirdest thing. I was just driving along when out of nowhere, this tree jumped right in front of me. So I swerved to miss it, but another tree popped up on the other side. I swerved again, and there was another tree, then another, and another." The officer paused for a moment, then said, "Ma'am, there isn't a single tree on this road for at least 30 miles. That was your air freshener swinging back and forth." A husband and wife were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. That evening, the wife walked into the room wearing the exact same silky negligee she wore on their wedding night. She looked at her husband and asked, "Honey, do you remember this?" He glanced up, his eyes lighting up with nostalgia. "Of course I do. You wore that the night we got married." She grinned. "That's right. Do you remember what you said to me that night?" He leaned back, a sly smile stretching across his face. "If I remember right, I said, 'Oh baby, I'm going to suck the life out of those beautiful and brains out.'" She laughed, her cheeks flushing. "Yes, honey, that's exactly what you said. So now, 50 years later, I'm wearing the same thing. What do you have to say tonight?" He looked her up and down, smiled warmly and said, "Mission accomplished." Bob, an undertaker, came home one evening sporting a massive black eye. His wife gasped, "What happened to you?" Bob sighed, "I had the worst day. I got called to a hotel because a guest had passed away in his sleep. When I got there, the manager told me they couldn't get him into the body bag because he had a massive erection." His wife raised her eyebrows. "Oh my." "Yeah," Bob continued. "I went up to the room and sure enough, there he was, completely naked, lying on the bed with this huge situation. So I grabbed it with both hands and tried to bend it in half." His wife winced. "That sounds awful. But how did you end up with the black eye?" Bob shook his head and muttered, "Wrong room." A young bride is in bed with her husband for the first time. When they get she notices that he has a club foot. Nervously, she leaves the room and calls her mother. "Mom, Frank has a foot and a half." The mom responds, "I'll be right there. This sounds like a job for Mama." It was Mother's Day, and at 32, I found myself at the local bar, feeling a bit frisky and ready to flirt. That's when I spotted her, a stunning 50-something-year-old woman. I signaled the bartender to send her a drink, and moments later she sauntered over, thanking me with a sultry smile. As she settled into the bar stool next to me, she playfully ran her foot up my leg and kissed my cheek. I realized I was in for a wild ride. She slid her hand onto my thigh and said, "I want this. I live just 3 minutes away. Let's go." The drive to her place was a blur of excitement. As soon as we stepped inside, she pinned me against the wall, grinding against me with a fiery passion. She licked up my neck and whispered in my ear, "You want some mother-daughter love?" I was so turned on that all I could manage was a breathless, "Yes!" Suddenly, she turned and yelled up the staircase, "Mom, get down here!" Beverly is 90 years old and has been playing golf every day since she retired 25 years ago. One afternoon, she comes home looking downcast. "That's it," she tells her husband. "I'm giving up golf. My eyesight is so poor that once I hit the ball, I can't even see where it goes." Her husband, Gus, makes her a comforting cup of tea and suggests, "Why don't you take me with you and give it one more try?" "That won't help," sighs Beverly. "You're 103. You can't be of any assistance." "I may be 103, Gus replied, "but my eyesight is perfect." The next day, Beverly decides to take Gus to the golf course. She tees up, takes a mighty swing, and squints down the fairway. Turning to her husband, she asks, "Did you see the ball?" "Of course," Gus replies confidently. "I have perfect eyesight." "Then where did it go?" Beverly inquires. Gus thinks for a moment and says, "I don't remember." Years ago, when travel was still a joy, a man and his ever-nagging wife went on vacation to Jerusalem. Sadly, while they were there, the wife passed away. The local undertaker told the husband, "You can have her buried here in the Holy Land for $150, or we can ship her back home for $5,000. The husband thought about it for a moment and then said, "Ship her back home." The undertaker, puzzled, asked, "Sir, why would you spend $5,000 to spot her back when you could have a beautiful burial here for just $150? The husband leaned in and whispered, "Listen, a long time ago, a man died here, was buried, and 3 days later, he rose from the dead. I just can't take that chance." A woman in her 70s visited the local undertaker. She looked over her husband, lying peacefully in a black suit, and paused. After a moment, she turned to the undertaker, handed him a check, and asked, "Is there any way you might be able to find him a blue suit? He always looked so handsome in blue." Though it was a bit irregular, the undertaker promised he would do his best. On the day of the service, the widow arrived and gasped with delight. Her husband was dressed impeccably in a beautiful silk blue suit, complete with a silk shirt and matching tie. "Oh my, this is perfect!" she exclaimed. She turned to the undertaker, trying to hand him the check, but he gently pushed it back. "No charge," he said with a smile. The widow, surprised, asked, "But a suit like that must have cost a fortune. How did you manage it?" The undertaker leaned in and whispered, "Well, it just so happened that another gentleman came in the same day, wearing a blue suit. His widow wanted him in black, so did the only thing that made sense." He paused for effect, then added, "We switched heads." A wife asks her husband, "Honey, if I die, would you remarry?" "After a considerable period of grieving, I guess I would. We all need companionship. If I died and you remarried," the wife asks, "would she live in this house? We've spent a lot of money getting this house just the way we want it. I'm not going to get rid of my house. I guess she would." "If I died and you remarried, and she lived in this house," the wife asks, "would she sleep in our bed?" Well, the bed is brand new, and it cost us $2,000. It's going to last a long time, so I guess she would. If I died, and you remarried, and she lived in this house and slept in our bed, would she use my golf clubs? Oh no, the husband replies. She's left-handed. Fred was worried that his wife, Rhonda, wasn't hearing as well as she used to. He suspected she might need a hearing aid, but wasn't quite sure how to bring it up. So, he called the family doctor to ask for advice. The doctor said, "There's a simple, informal test you can try to get a better idea of her hearing loss. Stand about 40 feet away from her and speak in a normal conversational tone. If she doesn't respond, move to 30 feet, then 20. And so on, until she does." That evening, Rhonda was in the kitchen making dinner while Fred was in the den. He thought, "I'm about 40 feet away. Let's see what happens." In a normal voice, he called out, "Honey, what's for dinner?" No response. He moved a little closer, now about 30 feet away, and repeated, "Rhonda, what's for dinner?" Still no answer. He stepped into the dining room, about 20 feet away. "Honey, what's for dinner?" Silence. Now a bit concerned, he walked up to the kitchen door, just 10 feet away, and asked again, "Rhonda, what's for dinner?" Still no response. Finally, he walked right up behind her and asked, "Rhonda, what's for dinner?" She turned around and snapped, "For the 5th time, Fred, it's chicken." A man walks into his favorite upscale restaurant and settles into his usual table. As he's glancing around, his eyes land on a stunning woman dining alone at a nearby table. Intrigued, he calls the waiter over and orders the most expensive bottle of Merlot to be sent her way, hoping to spark her interest. The waiter delivers the wine and tells the woman it's a gift from the gentleman across the room. She glances at the man, then at the bottle. And after a moment, she scribbles a note and asks the waiter to deliver it back. The note reads, "For me to accept this bottle, you must have a Mercedes in your garage, $1 million in the bank, and at least 7 inches in your pants." The man, amused, pens a reply and hands it to the waiter to deliver. His note reads, "Darling, I happen to have a LaFerrari, a BMW i8, and a Mercedes-AMG GTS sitting in my garage. My bank account holds over $20 million. But as for the last requirement, I'm not about to cut off 3 inches just to impress you. Kindly return the wine." After their first night together as a married couple, the bride turns to her husband and says, "That'll be $50. He laughs, hands her the money, and says, "If we're role-playing, you gotta let me know up front." From then on, every time they're intimate, she asks for $50, and he gladly pays. After all, it's their money. A year later, for their anniversary, he goes to the bank and gets a crisp $100 bill to make the evening extra special. He walks in, hands it to her with a smile. She kisses him and says, "That's sweet, but come out to the garage first." He follows her, and sitting there is a brand new Harley, complete with a helmet and jacket. "Happy anniversary, darling," she says. "I saved up all the money from our role-playing, paid cash. No financing? If we keep the spark alive, maybe we can trade up one day." He just stares in shock. "Wow, if I knew that, I would have given you all my business." 3 girls work together in the same office, all under the same female boss. Day after day, they noticed the boss would always sneak out of work early. One afternoon, the girls hatched a plan. As soon as the boss left, they'd clock out too. After all, the boss never called or came back, so who would ever know? That day, as planned, they followed through. The brunette went home, enjoyed some peaceful time in her garden, played with her little boy, and even managed to get to bed early. The redhead hit the spa, squeezed in a workout, and still had time to meet her date for dinner. The blonde was excited to surprise her husband, so she quietly tiptoed into the house. But as she neared the bedroom, she heard a strange muffled sound. Curious, she eased the door open, only to find her husband in bed with her boss. Shocked and heartbroken, she gently closed the door and slipped back out. The next day, during their coffee break, the brunette and redhead were already plotting to leave early again. They turned to the blonde and asked if she was in. "Not a chance," the blonde snapped. "I almost got caught yesterday." A local United Way office realized that the town's most successful lawyer had never donated to their organization. Hoping to change that, the fundraising coordinator gave him a call. "Our records show that despite earning at least $100,000 a year, you haven't donated a single penny to charity. Wouldn't you like to give back to your community?" The lawyer paused for a moment before responding. "Did your research also tell you that my mother is gravely ill and drowning in medical bills far beyond her income?" Caught off guard, the fundraiser stammered, No, I didn't know that." "Or that my brother, a disabled veteran, is blind and confined to a wheelchair." The caller began to apologize, but the lawyer cut him off. "Or that my sister's husband was killed in a car accident, leaving her to raise 3 kids alone with no financial support." Feeling completely humbled, the United Way rep stuttered, I had no idea." The lawyer sighed, then calmly said, "Well, if I don't give them a dime, what makes you think I'd give any to you?" A woman meets a handsome, charming guy at a bar. They hit it off instantly, great conversation, sparks flying, and before long, they head back to his place. As he gives her the grand tour of his apartment, she notices something unexpected. His bedroom is filled, and I mean packed, with teddy bears. There are small, cute bears lined up neatly along the bottom shelf, medium-sized fluffy bears perched on the middle shelves, and huge, giant teddy bears proudly sitting on the top shelf, watching over the room like silent guardians. She's a little surprised, but also kind of charmed. A tough-looking guy with such a soft, sensitive side? Definitely a rare find. So she doesn't say a word about it. One thing leads to another, the chemistry kicks into overdrive, and the night turns into a whirlwind of steamy, passionate romance. Afterward, as they lay there catching their breath, the woman smiles and playfully asks, "So, how was it for you?" The guy stretches, lets out a little yawn, and casually replies, "Help yourself to any prize from the bottom shelf." A man steps into the confessional and begins, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." "What is your sin, my son?" the priest asks. "Well," the man says, "I used some terrible language this week, and I feel awful about it." "When did you use this awful language?" the priest inquires. "I was out golfing," the man explains. "I hit an absolutely perfect drive. Looked like it was going to clear 250 yards, but then, out of nowhere, it smacked right into a phone line hanging over the fairway and dropped straight to the ground, barely making it 100 yards. "Ah," the priest nods knowingly. "Is that when you swore?" "No, Father," the man replies. "Then what happened?" "Well, right after that, a squirrel darted out from the bushes, grabbed my ball in its mouth, and took off running." The priest leans in. "And that is when you swore?" "No, not yet," says the man, because just as the squirrel was making its escape, an eagle swooped down, snatched it up in its talons, and soared into the sky with my ball still in the squirrel's mouth. The priest, now intrigued, asks, "Surely that's when you swore?" "Nope," the man says, "because as the eagle was flying over the green, the squirrel squirmed, dropped my ball, and it fell perfectly toward the hole." The priest's eyes widen. "And then you swore?" "Not quite," the man continues. "The ball hit a tree, bounced through some bushes, ricocheted off a rock, rolled through the sand trap, and stopped just 6 inches from the cup. The priest lets out a deep sigh, shaking his head. You missed the putt, didn't you?